Hi, everyone. As working professionals, feedback giving is a very important skill for all of us. It's a part of our work daily repertoire, right? And especially if you're a manager, if you have teams under you, definitely you have to give feedback to your team members on a daily, on a regular basis. Some managers shy away from giving feedback. They avoid feedback because they feel that how the other person would behave or feel or react in that particular manner. And that's the reason why they don't give feedback. While some other managers are very impromptu and abrupt in giving feedback, and they don't even think how that person would feel in that bargain. And some other managers really think a lot before giving feedback as to how that person would feel. And as a result, do not end up giving effective feedback. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today, friends. How to give effective feedback giving skills. Hi, friends. I'm Swati Arora. I'm a woman career growth coach, and I'm on a mission to help millions of women scale up the ladder and reach the pinnacle of their success. And today's topic is also very relevant to that because it's important for every working professional to be able to give and receive feedback. Today, I'm talking about how to give feedback, especially to your team members, to your juniors, to your peers, etc. And it's very important to understand the right feedback skills because it's going to help you as a working professional grow up the ladder. So stay put right till the end. And you know the drill. Before we go ahead, click on the subscribe button so that you can get access to all my videos upfront. Feedback is a critical tool for personal and professional growth. And when given effectively, which means if the feedback is positive and given in a constructive manner, it can actually impact change in behavior, in work, in performance, and overall well being of the person. But if flipped on the other side, which means if feedback is not given effectively, it can actually impact into negative consequences as well and change the mindset of the person as well. So it's very important to effectively give feedback. But before we go ahead, let's understand how you are giving feedback, which means your personality type that you carry, which reflects in the way you give feedback. So every leader has a unique personality type in which he or she gives feedback. So let's understand what are the different styles of giving feedback of leaders and which categories would you belong into. There is no good or bad category, right? There's no good or bad way of giving feedback. But yes, you have to keep into mind what is the other person's perspective whom you're giving feedback and what is the situation all about, right? That is the prime important feature that you have to keep in mind before giving any feedback. So let's get started. We're going to divide this video into two parts. First part, I will talk about the different feedback giving styles of leaders and what are the merits and demerits of each of them. And second, I'm going to talk about some basic tips on how you can give feedback effectively and how you can improve your feedback giving skills. Okay, so let's take a pen and paper and let's get started. So the first style of feedback is directive. Now, directive leaders are very straightforward and they'll tell you exactly what needs to be done and what does not need to be done, what could be done differently, right? This is a good approach. They would actually use things like, just give you instructions what to do and what not to do. They would use phrases like, you should have done this, or you need to do this, or you should do this. Well, that's a good approach, I would say, but in situations only when you know your team very well, when you're a seasoned leader, when you know what you're talking about, and you know that this feedback is going to apply to him or her in an appropriate manner. And secondly, also your team member should have been working with you for a long time. This kind of feedback, which is directive feedback, is given to people whom you've already built your rapport with, your trust with, your bonding with, and you know them very well that they won't feel bad if you give a directive, abrupt feedback. So that's very important to have a trustworthy, a healthy relationship with your team before being a directive feedback giver. The next one is supportive. Supportive leaders will give you feedback more on a supportive ground, on a collaborative way, in a constructive manner, in a very positive manner. And they would appreciate you. They will pat your back and, then they will give you a little bit of emotional support and then they will give you feedback in a very sandwich technique. Well, this is a very nice way to give feedback because, and especially when you have new team members whom you've not really connected very well with, or someone in your team who's emotionally a little weaker than the others, that kind of person definitely needs supportive feedback because you need to give him constructive feedback so that they can, kind of take it very easily and they can apply to it as well. So using phrases like, good job done, I really appreciate the stars that you've done, or, this was wonderful thing that you do and you continue to do that. However, this is something that you can change. So that is the way when you give supportive and constructive feedback, and the other person will really accept that feedback in a very, very positive way. The next one is collaborative. Collaborative leaders will involve team members in doing the solutions, in getting to the solutions. They may involve your input, and they may ask you questions to get to the solutions that you really want to do. So basically, it's a collaborative teamwork kind of an effort, and they may use phrases like, let's get together and work towards it, or let's brainstorm what is the best solution for this, or let's come together and find out a good solution for this option. So this is also a very nice way of giving feedback, especially if you have a tenured team, when you know that they have capabilities which you don't have to really push them towards something. So in that situation, it's very good to involve your team members and have a collaborative way of giving feedback, where you can take their inputs and also offer solutions with their help only. People do achieve results faster when they are giving the solutions by themselves. So it's very important to involve them in the decision making process. The next type of feedback is evaluative. Evaluative leaders will generally give you feedback on the basis of data and performance matrix. They would generally have an Excel sheet in front of them. They would look at the performance matrices and the measurement of your improvement, and then they would give you feedback accordingly, because that's how they function, especially operations folks or delivery folks or business folks. They would like to give feedback on the numbers that are presented, how much you've improved, how much you've gone down. So that's how they talk, right? Based on your data, this much is your improvement required, or these areas are in these areas you need improvement. Well, that's a very nice way of giving feedback, because you can be directive as well, and also you're evaluating, you're showing the numbers to the person. But be a little sensitive, especially when you're handling people who are emotionally a little weaker in your team, and be a little empathetic when giving evaluative feedback as well, because sometimes numbers are important, improvement is important, but sometimes you also need to look at the holistic behavior of the person, what really made him or her not achieve that target. So it's very important to look at those aspects as well, the softer aspects as well. Yeah. And the last feedback type is coaching. Coaching leaders tend to focus on your areas of improvement, on your strengths, on your weaknesses, and identify and highlight it to them. This is the best by far mechanism if someone can actually use that, because coaching is not a directive way of giving feedback, not a telling way of giving feedback, or not even a suggestive way of giving feedback. This is basically asking questions, eliciting information from the other person, and then getting them to deliver the solutions. That's the best way one can ever give feedback. But it's very difficult. It's easier said than done. If you're a coaching type of a leader, you will focus on your team members' strengths, identify those strengths, highlight those strengths, and also help them improve on their weaknesses, on to get rid of their weaknesses as well. So that this kind of coaching feedback mechanism is focused on goals, is focused on overall holistic improvement of the person. So those were the different styles of feedback mechanisms that leaders adapt. And I hope you were able to identify which feedback mechanism is your general go-to feedback mechanism. Whether it is good or bad, now you know what feedback mechanism you're adapting. Now, in the subsequent session of this video, I'm going to talk about basic tips that you need to keep in mind. Some things that you need to keep at the back of your mind while giving feedback, no matter what style you adapt. But these are very important, critical elements to look at the softer aspects when you are giving feedback. So the first point that you need to keep in mind while giving feedback is to be specific. Don't beat around the bush. Don't say that you come late so many times a day or a month, or your performance is just not improving so over so many years or months. You don't do that, right? You give very specific measurable feedback. It's very important to give specific feedback, targeting or telling the person that this is exactly why I'm giving you feedback. This behavior of yours is impacting this result, is giving this result, and that needs to change. So when you're being specific, you're not actually targeting on the person, but on the action that the person is doing, and that doesn't really offend the other person when he or she is receiving feedback for you. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind is be specific when you give feedback. Don't be vague, don't be random. The next thing is to be timely when you're giving feedback. You should not give feedback way long. You should not wait too long to give feedback. For example, if there is a behavior change that you're seeing, give the feedback immediately. If there's something wrong that the person has done, give the feedback immediately. Because if you wait too long, one is that he or she will repeat that feedback over and over again before you even come to know, because he has not been receiving any feedback. And the second is that you will lose track of the entire incident that actually happened. So neither will you be able to explain the feedback in a positive way, nor will the person be able to understand, because that's probably happened way long back, right? So feedback has to be given immediately. And if it is a grave situation, then immediately itself, like really at that point in time. The next point is be empathetic. Now, I can't reinforce more on this point. It's very, very critical when giving feedback that you need to look at the situation with empathy. Okay, look at the situation from the other person's perspective as well, and understand and feel how they will feel when you're giving feedback. Only then will you be able to provide it in a very empathetic, positive, constructive manner. Okay, and it should not sound like you're giving feedback because you want to criticize them or you're finding faults in them, but it should sound like you're genuinely trying to help them improve their performance or improve their behavior, and that's why you're giving feedback. Only then that person will accept it with wholeheartedly and will actually follow that. The next point is offer suggestions or offer solutions, right? Rather than just pointing out the problems or just the negative parts of the feedback, you may also want to offer suggestions or solutions as an alternative for the person on how he or she needs to improve. Rather than saying that, just do this, it's not supposed to be done like that. Why don't you show the right way to that person and, guide that person accordingly? That's so that he can follow that and become and improve on his performance. The next thing is also, you should give feedback in a way which is basically towards improvement, towards improving his or her goals. So if you're offering solutions, it could be offering solutions to provide some support, some mentorship, or some training as well, which could really help that person improve in his or her skills. And the last thing about feedback mechanism is follow up. After you've given feedback, don't just disappear. It's important to follow up with that person periodically to check if he or she has actually adapted that feedback that you've given and has shown any improvement. The follow up shows that you really care about their growth, their development, and their overall personal well being, right? So it's important to follow up on that person regularly, maybe once in a while, once in a week, or once in a fortnight, to check if the feedback has really worked for them and if they have improved in their journey. So, just to summarize, friends, feedback giving is an essential skill for personal development. And if you are a leader, if you're a manager, you must give feedback, but in a very effective way, because the way you give feedback is critical than what you're giving feedback about, right? So I hope this video was beneficial for you to help you give effective feedback to your team members, to your juniors, to your peers. And I hope you will adapt some of these techniques in your further feedback mechanism. Let me know in the comments, how did you like the video and which parts of the video really helped you? I will come back next time with some more interesting elements for working professionals. Till such time, you do take care of yourself. Bye-bye.